Today we'll hear from innovative founders pushing boundaries in technology and business solution. This session will start with a discussion with our two esteemed industry leaders, Mr. Abhay Pandey, who is co-founder of A91 Partners, and Mr. Vikram Mahajan, who is partner at Unicorn India Ventures. This will be followed by presentations from 4 innovative startups, ending with a combined Q&A. So I would like to invite Mr. Abhay Pandey, veteran investor, formerly the managing director at Sequoia Capital India Advisors, where he backed brands like Vinny Cosmetics, Indigo Paints, and B9 Beverage. Please welcome Mr. Abhay on the stage. I would also like to invite Mr. Vikram Mahajan, who is partner at Unicorn India Adventures, who would be moderating this session on the startups. Please welcome Mr. Vikram on the stage. In addition, I would also like to invite our 4 startup founders. So I'll start with, delight to introduce Mr. Abhilash Chakravarti, who is the founder at Lark AI. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Abhilash. Next, I would like to introduce Mr. Amit Srivastav, who is co-founder and CTO at Costems AI. Please welcome Mr. Amit on the stage. Next, I would like to introduce our third founder, Mr. Anirudh Banerjee, founder of Switch On. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Anirudh on the stage. And lastly, I would like to invite Mr. Samyak Jain, who is the founder of Zico AI and MyWays AI. Please join me, welcome Mr. Samyak on the stage. With this, I would like to hand over to Mr. Vikram Mahajan for coordinating and moderating this session.
So, Abhay, I'll start with you. So you have been, I think, stellar career overall from the beginning, IIT, IIM, McKinsey, Merrill Lynch, Sequoia, and we were in Vinny together, and now your own fund. So did you ever think that you'll be invited to such a stage at IIM Udaipur and at an AI event? Did you have an aspiration for that ever?
No, it's not about aspiration. It's about you get invited to many, many events, but there are some where you go because you have a relationship. This is one such event. There's a relationship, and you honor the relationship and respect that, and that's the reason why I'm here. So very happy to be here and talking to all of you.
No, thanks for being a sport. So the core agenda is looking at AI and how it's shaping the world. It's eating the world, actually. And globally, if you see, more than 100 billion has been invested in AI over the last 2-3 years. Whereas some argue that the largest company generates less than $5 billion in revenues. So from an ROI perspective, it's justified?
I think this is not the stage to ask that question, whether investments in AI are justified or not. Because if you ask that question for many, many sectors at a very early stage of inception, the answer would be no. If you ask this question on investments in internet or even the devices, so if you go back, let me phrase this for everyone. Venture capital is based on emergence of new platforms that usually happens once in every 10 years or more. And that wave then creates multiple companies, and those companies create value, and that's what the job of venture capital is. You're looking for those waves to happen. So if you go back to the 1970s, computers came for the first time. The wave of computers happened, semiconductors, and so on and so forth. In the 80s, those computers got connected through networks, and all that era was of networked computing, and there you had Cisco and so on and so forth. The 90s happened and the internet came, and then there was Google and so on. In 2005, give or take, the iPhone happened, and that was the next wave, and then lots of apps on the iPhone happened. And since then, the world has been looking for the next wave. Around 2010, 12, the SaaS wave happened, which created several $100 billion of value. But people have still been looking for the next wave. Someone thought it is clean tech. People thought it was VR, AR. None of them took off in any significant way. But now we found the AI wave. And this looks more real. And therefore, the hundreds of billions of dollars will go in. And this looks, based on the last 3-4 years, that this is the next really big and bigger than everything else that's happened in the past. So that's the belief that the venture capital world has, and they have dollars to invest for this risk. And if it doesn't happen, clean tech did not happen as effectively in the 2010s. A lot of money got wasted, and the ROC in those were 2-3%. And then people slowed down those investments. But the investments that happened in the internet era, on the networking, on platforms, all of those worked really, really well. So maybe 10 years later, we'll really, really know what the impact of this is. So far, I think there is a lot of excitement and some disappointment on lots of side projects that have not gone anywhere, but some of the core projects are still making strong progress. So I think we should all still be optimistic that this will yield really good results, and that's where more and more money is going in.
So on that note, what do you think is going to be India's role? Because India is not known to make ambitions, billions of dollar investments in, let's say, creating foundational models or creating large infrastructure which can host all this computing infra. So from India, but India is the third largest ecosystem, and the world cannot ignore India. What do you think is going to be India's role? And on that note, which models, AI companies, do you think are going to be the winners?
I wish I knew the answer to this, which companies are going to be the winners, then our job becomes easy. But I think India will have two very important roles. We know how good we are at creating code and being efficient in writing good code at low cost. We are good thinkers, analytical minds as a country. The basic large investments that have gone into LLMs, and I don't know if everyone understands how much money has gone into that and what's going on, that's become a big boys game. So that's going to be very, very difficult for any Indian company to step out and compete. We shouldn't say impossible, but it will be very, very difficult to compete. However, when it comes to building on top of those LLMs, the large models, I think there's a wide scope across industries, and I think there will be areas where India, because it has very good quality data on certain specific industries, we'll have a better chance. So one, better coding, better analytical abilities, and then very good data in some areas, cheaper data in some areas. So we have that advantage. So I would be very optimistic, for example, in healthcare, on the legal side, on the financial services side, that we'll be able to create certain models on top of the big models, which will be the best in class. Now, these are just naming a few industries, because people in India have surprised us on many, many fronts. So we should be optimistic. It's very early days, and we should hear from the founders on what they're doing, but we are waiting. I mean, we are somewhat late-stage investors, but the early-stage investors are already going in and making small bets here and there, waiting for where the real application layer will get developed in India. But so that's one big area. I also think the second big area is on the data warehousing side. We will have a role. The government has been very clear about their intent. All the hyperscalers are being made to make large investments in India. I think the Indian companies will not be far behind. So while Google, Apple, and so on, and Microsoft will make very large investments, some of the Indian companies will make very large investments in data centers, and we will become one of the large, I would say, geographies where tons of data will be stored. All of Indian data itself will be massive. Plus, I think we will have the infrastructure and low-cost infrastructure to house other data as well. So we have two big roles to play, application layer and data warehousing.
So as you mentioned, it's the founders who are building the next big thing. Let's hand it over to the founders. Why don't each of you present what you are building and how do you think it's going to change the world?
Sure. We'll start from this side then. Hi, everyone. I'm the founder of SwitchOn. We at SwitchOn are enabling industries reach zero defects and zero customer complaints. We work with large manufacturers across the globe in CPG and automotive space, and we help their quality assurance and quality inspection practices be automated through the use of AI, right? This starts from the inspection itself. So we use computer vision and AI to automate the inspection that they do in their manufacturing plant. Few of you may be aware, the quality teams in typical manufacturing plants is about 25% of the workforce. And still large brands lose in the order of about $120 million per year only on what is called cost of poor quality, which is a combination of cost of product recall and the manual inspection that they do. We are using AI to automate that completely and help drastically bring down the cost of poor quality. We work with automotive companies like Hyundai, Suzuki, tier one suppliers like Bosch, Denso, etc. We also work with large CPG companies like Unilever, P&G, etc. across Thailand, Indonesia, India, Europe, the Americas, and so on. We also are building the next layer of this, which is the automated root cause of the quality defects, essentially helping them eliminate the defects altogether. Our vision is to power self-operating industries where you pretty much give a recipe to any plant across the globe, and it will produce the product in the correct line at the correct time with the correct quality. So that's what we are doing.
Hi. Hi, I'm Amit Shrivastava from Constance AI. Let me take you back to the time when we used to go to shop. So weekly shopping or monthly shopping for, we all remember, we go to malls, we collect things, and we feel happy about it. Now, think from a point of view of the people who are putting their product there. There are 100 to 130 lakhs stores or retail stores in India itself. And there are only 25 to 30 lakhs where these retailer can reach, the bigger one, Unilever type. Now, don't even think about smaller stores, their reach will be limited. Now, think about you as a honey maker or honey packer. Honey is made by bees, so you are the honey packer. And you are blessed with a place where you make honeys. Now, where do you put it? You can sell like 1,000 bottles around your neighbor. What about the 9,000 or 10,000 bottles which you have left in your background? Where do you sell them? And what if I tell you that using AI, we have a vision AI agents, and these agents can actually tell you where to place them. So it all started. So with an AI agent, let me give you a little breakdown of it. What it does, it can actually look at the images or pictures and can understand what's happening into it. So it's like us looking at a picture and making out what's happening there. So if you are a honey maker and if you are told that, okay, if you place your product in these scenarios or in these stores at these shelves, and you can sell faster than Dabur honey, that is the power it is bringing in. So how it works, how it's evolved, we started by providing information by looking at images to the big stores. So big brands like Unilever, P&G, they wanted to know what is their share of shelf, what is their OSA on shelf availability, what is their online availability, what kind of brands are there in their particular market. It started with that. Now it is also able to give recommendations. And not only that, it can also generate images or pictures what would be more attractive to a particular region. So if you're doing a marketing, you can do a market for a region, you can do a market for Maharashtra or for Uttar Pradesh. But what if you can do it on a pin code basis? So that's the granularity, that's the vision AI agents that we are making at Constance. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Vikram. So if there's a slide deck you can put up, but I'll just talk briefly about what Lark AI is doing. So we are a health tech company. What we do is primarily make sure that at the point of care, which is most relevant, the most up-to-date and relevant information is available to the patient for the doctor to take a good clinical decision. So, for example, if a patient complains of, let's say, chest pain, ambulance comes to it. At that point, there is no information. There's complete asymmetry and darkness on what could be the precursor to this chest pain. It could be a gastric, or it could be something which is really around the heart. This AI models primarily looks at detecting and confirming that this is let's say, onset of an MI or a heart attack. And at the caregiver who's at the point of care receives that information at the moment when he or she has to take a decision on what medicine should I give or not. Now the ambulance brings the patient to the hospital. We use something called the UHI, or United Health Interface, or ABHA, which is the digital health background equivalent to UPI. And the patient's data gets collated with the travel of the patient through the hospital, through the emergency room, then to the operation theater, then to the ICU, then to the wards, and then finally discharged. At each point, there is always some diagnosis which is done. And today, the problem with healthcare is they're all in different silos. And what we've built is a common platform called Bluetail, which works across all these silos and gives a very precise information on what is or it simulates what the patient is likely to go through, looking at that particular patient's history. So we are able to give to the decision maker, whether you're planning a surgery or you are planning for a medication regime, the most important and relevant information. And this allows them for, number one, saves lives. Number two, at a very low cost, you can get a specialist-like treatment from somebody who's just probably a general physician or just a nurse. So that ability to bring the expertise of 1,000 cardiologists and radiologists to a fingertip of a nurse is something which we do. So we've got two small learning models, or let's call it as, I would have called it large language model, but it's actually specialized language models. One is called Bluetail and the second is called Real Time. So Real Time works with cardiologists and anesthetists, and Bluetail works with radiologists. So it looks at images, data in the hospital, and the other one looks at the biosignals or ECGs, and therefore collects and gives it to you at the form in which you can start a prescription or a diagnosis. That's what we do.
Yeah. So at Zeco AI, we create AI agents to help enterprises scale their teams, right? So we are talking about digital transformation in businesses. So me and my co-founder, we have been into the recruitment tech space for last 5 years, right? We have worked with 100, 150 companies oddly at different industries, different scales. And what we realized was that this entire recruitment industry is too cluttered, right? A lot of softwares. For every problem that you have, there would actually be multiple solutions available, right? So when we worked with them, what we identified was, and we're working with different companies, let's say BPOs like Hexaware to a Thermax to a Schneider Electric kind of companies. At that scale, the moment your teams actually go beyond 500 or 1,000, the biggest problem becomes what exactly the hiring manager is hiring for. There's a lot of dilution that happens to the last stage of a recruiter actually looking out for such talent, right? And obviously there are low bandwidths in terms of why should I take the interview, and then there is recruiter after them scheduling interviews and all of that, right? Lot of effort going in. Because of these manual tasks which are there in the entire process and multiple decision makers, inefficiencies there and definitely the speed, right? So speed is slow. This is one side of the story. How generative AI actually changed it in last 2 years, particularly is one of the biggest thing is India is actually one of the biggest, largest adopters of AI, Indian businesses, right? So it's at 69%, it's the report by McKinsey, which is highest in the world. I think US is at around 33%. Now, how do we leverage generative AI at that step? 2019 to 21, HRs were not very adoptive about using technology, but I think today they're having conferences. Among other businesses, business units, I think HR functions are the first one to adopt AI. So what we do at Zeco AI, how do we actually align these decisions and reduce the number of steps and manual decision makers in the process? We create AI agents which talk to the hiring manager in an audio-video conversation format. It gets the requisition, understands the entire scope of job, the technical aspects of it as well. And from there, take real-time interviews. These are all conversational interviews of the talent, generate reports, and not only that, it also gets into the final interview when it's happening with the real person to understand what exactly are the gaps identified, reduce any biases, or let us say identify any biases that these companies or when there are multiple panels in different units happening, and give that data back again to the AI interviewer to screen and interview better, right? And our target has always been, so when we work with these companies, they also ask us for, hey, can you also conduct exit interviews, streamline that, standardize that. So then there are multiple use cases which emerge. We usually integrate with ATS, right? And the ultimate vision is there are around 50,000 such growing and hyper-growing enterprises globally. Our ultimate vision is we actually become an AI partner for them to scale their teams as they focus on their core businesses. So that's a bit about what we do at Zeco. Yeah.
Very interesting. So believe all of us are vertical AI companies, manufacturing 5.0, retail, healthcare, and HR. So all of you must be using foundational models, third-party foundational models, AI tools, DevOps, and the likes. As these underlying models change, and the step up is quite steep, the way they change, and sometimes after GPT 3.5 and ChatGPT came, it overtook all the marketing and advertising, content generation space, and it killed actually, cannibalized and killed the entire industry. How risky do you think this dependence is, and how do you address this risk going forward?
Okay, I'll go first. So I think, I mean, the way that I frame this in my mind is, I mean, as a company, are we looking forward to new model releases or are we scared of new model releases, right? So we at Switch On really look forward to model releases, and that's a great place to be, right? Because I think what we've seen till now is each of the pre-trained models have been a step increase in terms of the gross applications that they enable. And that enables us to do net new applications, right? So from our side, which is, for example, going from the visual inspection side of things to more complex predictive root causing of defects and so on, which are really complex, like starting from the inspector, which is like at the operator level, to the process engineer, which is pretty much at the general manager level. So that's what we've reached. So I think a way to de-risk that, in my opinion, is to position the business such that it looks forward to new model releases. While I say that, though, I think there is one interesting thing that is happening, which is, I don't know if you are aware, but most of the large model labs have slowed progress on pre-trained models right now, right? And the paradigm is slightly shifting from pre-trained models to what is called test time compute. The reason I mention this is, what I think this will lead to is a lot of standardizations in the models themselves. You can see that with the way that Llama is going, right? What Llama essentially is doing for the industry is creating a set of standard APIs and architectures that a lot of application layer companies such as us can actually use. And I think that's the way that the industry will be going. I think I'll allude back to what Abhay was saying in the sense that I think the last 3 years have been pretty much a land grab, right? It's like, you get as many NVIDIA GPUs as possible, you try to test it as much as possible. I think the next 2 years is going to be more about optimization, right? Like, how do you get these models to perform applications that are better? And so the industry, the foundational model labs will drive towards standardization, which is great for us as a company because we want to focus on the next big thing. Yeah.
So my take on this is, like, we have been in this scene for last 7 years, and we started with deep nets, and we have been looking at the retail self, and we have been looking at images, and during those initial 3-4 years, we realized that there are a lot of gaps. There are a lot of things which is still DeepNet cannot do. With these models, those gaps have quickly filled in. So we just not look at what is, so if you look at a retail or a retailer or a brand owner, he's putting his stuff on the shelf and he's also trying to find out what's happening. So if he has put it on the third part of the shelf, is it really making sense in that particular word? So that's the part which we filled in, that gap in the initial or the first part of our journey. Now, using this new generative model, we can actually do more. We can prescribe. So that's the advantage. Now, there are two themes or two directions which are happening. One is generative models, which is where you are having large language models and large vision models. And then the other thing is where you are looking at a latent space. You're actually looking at the embeddings. You're actually looking at things which are getting in, but you are actually not doing a LVM, building a layer on top of it. Like, for example, Dino V2 or the entropy-based models. So those are the models which are your engine. Car is still being made by you. So in our company, what we try to do is we are kind of having all three of them in, for sake of scalability, you cannot put a LVM and do those kind of things. What you do is you use LVM to get your models trained so that you can scale up. So that's our answer to scalability part. And then as we are moving forward, getting the embedding or getting it as an engine is the critical. And as I believe that looking forward to a model release, looking forward to the new research is definitely what is going to be the core of it. But then how do you design your car? So I'll see it like this. Electric vehicle have an electric engine, but there are people who are making electric vehicles. Like if you look back, you have petrol engines, but then there are so many brands which are making their cars. So cars are known by their engines, of course, but then they're also known by how they are running. How does it look like? So that's my answer to it. I mean, that's how we see it.
So Vikram, ours is like a very specialized case in which, we've not relied on any large language model and we've created our own models. Because when we started off 5 years back, there was none. So when Lark AI was formed, we really started with our own clinical trials and we did about 3 million data points, spent about 1 crore rupees with generous grants of BIRAC and MIT. So those models were now deployed, and now what we've learned is the fact that when we decentralize it, when we give the control over it to some of our customers, they are able to put in or input it much better. So in the sense that we're giving them the ability to learn the customer premises, but we also ultimately have the control over it. We don't have any other parallel in the world wherein probably Google MedPump came pretty close, but I don't know how far they're going, how accurate they are. But as of now, this area seems to be such in which no global multinational seems to have an interest because probably it's too small for them to take interest. But then for us, it has been our life's journey for the last 5 years. So when we deploy these two SMLs or let's say small or specialized language models, these are very purpose built for that particular set of customers, and therefore it's very difficult to replicate. We've got about 16 patents on it. So therefore it's difficult for anybody to come in at this point. Probably it's not too difficult, but I do expect that the competition will hot up in the next 2 or 3 years.
Right. So for us, like we have been doing interviews much before LLMs were there, right? But there was more of a Aadhaar KYC kind of setup where there's a human invigilation happening. But the real piece is actually done by technology that we have built. What LLMs have helped us is more on the conversation aspect of it, right? So and we were able to now guardrails the entire piece that the conversation is not going out of the context. So that's one piece, and we need to, as Abhay mentioned, right? So it's more about how do we get into vertical application of the technology. So what we do is we create frameworks. So when I talk about discussion, when I'm doing a sales discussion, there are certain sales frameworks to be done. There are certain cultural frameworks or psychometric frameworks to be done, right? So we have, in our case, SLM or we call it mini LLMs, we have actually made it according to those frameworks to make it more contextual. So that is one part. The other very important part is, when it comes to the vertical application is, because we're dealing with humans, direct interaction is with humans and various kinds. So social aspect is very important. How to manage the workflows, what all should be asked, what all should not be asked, how does the information flow from, let's say, one recruiter to a hiring manager to a maybe a third interview panel, let's say, right? So those workflows have to be very smooth, which has nothing to do with AI but core software, right? So I think this is what has helped us future-proof ourselves here.
No, that's very, very helpful. Good to understand how each of you are building on top or irrespective of the foundational models. What will really be helpful for all of us is two things, at least for me. Just sense from all of you, how long have you been doing this? How large are you in terms of how many people or revenue scale, whatever you think you track your business with? And more importantly, if you have to get to the next stage, what is the major challenge that you're facing that you need to solve for that allows you to get to the next level?
Great. I'll go first again. In terms of the scale for us, so we have 3 offices in India right now. We have an office in the US. We serve customers across about 50 sites spread across the Americas, North and South, Europe, as well as Southeast Asia, where we solve for different kinds of very, very critical inspection problems in automotive and CPG, right? We work with large manufacturers. We are doing close to a couple of million in revenue. We are venture funded. We've raised about $5.5 million till date. And we are one of the very few industrial AI companies where we are growing 3x plus year over year, even at this scale, which is kind of difficult to do because these are industries that find it difficult to adopt new technology, especially AI, right? In terms of when we think about our next stage, I think the work that we have been doing has right now been kind of focused on automating the inspection, right, which I alluded to, which is like automating what the inspector does. What we are slowly trying to do is we are trying to eliminate the defects altogether from manufacturing and help manufacturers reach zero defects, which is where a lot of the economic value is, because defect is wastage, right? And so once you inspect post facto, you really still end up wasting the product most of the times. And I think the big unlock for us there would be the ability to analyze context of the entire manufacturing process, which will be dependent upon a lot of the capabilities that large language models provide for us, GPT-4 and 4.5 plus included, right? So yeah, I think that's the next stage for us. In terms of the scale itself, definitely we are scaling across all of the continents. So we are looking to add different kinds of enterprise go-to-market teams across primarily the Americas and Europe. I lead that part of it. So, you know, we are looking for good people for us to do and scale our go-to-market there. We are also, we are also looking to scale up our technology teams as we start analyzing from local supply chains to global supply chains spread across multiple geographies, which is also part of the China Plus One. I'm sure a bunch of you are aware that supply chains are getting restructured as we speak. So there is a lot of new manufacturing capabilities that are getting built out both in the Southeast Asia and many other geographies. And we are looking to power these sites as they build the next level of lighthouse sites or the next level of manufacturing for large brands.
Yeah, hi. So we have been operational in India, Thailand, Philippines, Indonesia, so Southeast Asia and India. And our target market is to look at US and Europe in this context. We have been processing like 10 million images on a weekly basis. And this is something which is giving us that power to, look at things and do a prescriptive part of it before we are only providing the information. Now we are also telling them what they can do further. So that part of it. Today we are nearly touching $2 million. We have 40 people team. The bottleneck that we see is not coming from the technology point of view. There are a lot of enabler. Yesterday, if I was able to do, things with 4 people or 10 people, and they were like still not 98%. Today, I can do it with a lesser number of people, and it is at a higher accuracy. So the use cases have increased. I can serve and give them more wow factor. R is enterprise sales. So the bottleneck is enterprise sales. So that is where it takes long time. Enterprise tend to de-risk everything. So they need to talk to you. They will not need an AI. So they need to talk to you. They need to see and feel that you are here. You are there to solve the problem. You are there if the system is going down. So they need to see that human side of you, although you are an AI company, to make that happen. And that's where I believe our bottleneck is sales team or customer relationship team. So where we can actually build those confidence and deploy our solutions.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Abhay. So we started our journey on 1st January 2020. So it's 5 years old now. Our company is about 25 people strong. We are working at the NASSCOM Center of Excellence for IoT and AI in Gurgaon. First 3 years, we were backed by the government of India, and that's how most of these language models got created or the clinical trials got completed. No VC was willing to touch us when we were pre-revenue. I think that is one of the things which needs to change in India. Because once we started making revenue, then there's a beeline. But the first 3 years were really the struggling years in which government of India helped us. the mighty Samrit program, Bayrak Leap Fund, big programs, they helped bring this technology to market. And then they made something which was unique, which is United Health Interface, or ABHA. And I'll urge everybody to download the ABHA app. It's something what UPI has done. So many of the companies are now building on UPI in the fintech space. So similarly, UHI is similar to what UPI is. So they gave us this platform, and that kind of reduced our infrastructure cost. We just had to get ourselves certified as ABHA compliant, and that's how we could scale up. Now, we do our ARR of about $1 million, and we've raised about $2 million now this year. Presence is in India, UK, and Singapore. These are the 3 countries. We find that the paying capacity in these other 2 countries are higher, but for India, it's more of a nascent market, so people are accepting it. In the next 3-4 years, we expect it to grow, multiply. But in terms of revenue, 80% of revenue comes from the higher paying countries. But when you look at use cases and training models, you were right, it's cheaper. It's easier to do clinical trials in India, much faster, large number of data points, so we train our models here. Then we do local validations and evaluations in those countries.
Yes, so we are into the business for last 4.5 years now. For us, it is more about the unit economics of things when it comes to India as a market, right? So we are currently in India and in UAE. So for us, it's a game of volume and value. So why would someone use AI in hiring? Is either it's a high value job where you need to reduce the manual efforts there, right? That's where you save a lot of costs and speed up the process, or either it is high volume. So for us, when it comes to high volume, India is the market, right? And when it comes to high value, definitely there's certain sectors which are there. So to strike that balance of volume and value is, I think, the key. And we also discuss about the unit economics of things where in India market, let's say if my AI is taking some interview in a BPO, right? Their current costs of humans doing it might be lesser than AI actually doing it. So this is what I mean by value, but BPO is a high volume. So to reduce the current costs of our product and also identify those markets, if I meet 100 customers, 80 of them are interested, but actually 30 of them are, or 25 of them are actually relevant and ready to adopt AI, right? So they've been told to explore as many AI products today to implement in the organization, but not all of them are ready from a change management perspective or from a cost transformation standpoint. So this is particularly a challenge that I think we are currently solving. Yeah.
With that, let's open up the panel for audience questions.
This is the question for manufacturing, maybe. So in US, I've seen a lot of company adopting digital twins. Have you seen a use case for that in any of your customer base? Are you working on it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think digital twins, or the NVIDIA term for it is Omniverse. I'm ex-NVIDIA, by the way. So I think that is really a part of the overall vision of physical AI, right? Which is, I mean, there are many nuances and complications to implementing physical AI, but that is definitely something that is being looked at. I think the digital twins themselves as a concept have been around for a while now. I think minimum of a couple of decades. They've been used primarily for simulation and design. But I think this is the first time we are seeing that being used in the operational context, right? Where in the operations of industries, for example, we are seeing some digital twins happen. There are some challenges primarily on the infrastructure and data side. So as you know, that digital twins really depend upon a lot of good high fidelity data, which even the largest manufacturers honestly are struggling with even now. But yeah, I think they are slowly owning up to the fact that the data can become an asset and it can tangibly improve the business outcomes they can achieve. And so they are now, for the first time, being incentivized to actually clean up their data, put that in proper data lakes. I see people from Tech Mahindra laughing, I'm sure. I'm sure they're in the middle of a lot of this cleanup. And so, that's something that's definitely happening, especially in US and Europe. Yeah.
So you mentioned zero defects, so that's how that triggered in my head.
Right.
But that's one of the ways they're looking at.
That's absolutely correct. And we are powering a part of this from the quality side, which is we're enabling them to connect the man-machine method material to the manufacturing processes they have in real time, and essentially enabling them to bring some of these digital twins to life.
Thank you. One quick one for anyone. How do I know your guardrail is adequate or better than somebody else? Is there any standards out there that you follow?
Regarding privacy, data privacy?
Privacy, safety, whatever is the customer requirement is.
So yeah, so right now the law is getting enforced, which is DPDP. But prior to that also, we do anonymize the data. We don't share patients or patient identifiable data with anybody. In fact, we don't even store it. The fact is, this metadata is being used, and nobody can identify you by name, person, caste, number, or anything. So we consciously take proactive steps to clean out any kind of unique identifier which might come with our, say, CT, X-ray, or any kind of ultrasound images, any kind of images. So therefore, we make sure that the data is cleaned even before we take it in. So that's the filter which we have. And then, of course, compliance to HIPAA. And there's another standard in India called VASA. These are basically getting enforced now, but we've already taken those steps to be compliant. Yeah.
I'd like to add to that. If you look at the guardrail, interestingly, all large language model or all X models are not necessarily the interface. They could also be a core or the engine or a piece to do certain things. So for example, in our case, we essentially work in the area of KPIs. So we provide KPIs compliances. So in those cases, you are getting answers like you would get earlier with deep nets, but it is better in a sense that you have a larger training set, you have a bigger training sets, and what you are getting out, the accuracy of identifications is much, much, much better. So you are not directly interfacing with any of the vision models directly.
I think the way I understood your question is also, is there a standard, right? Like, I mean, where is the benchmark? Unfortunately, the case right now is the super alignment teams or the alignment teams are just getting built out in a lot of the labs. I think Anthropic is doing some amazing work here, by the way. Plug for them. So, these alignment teams, the goal of this team is to create these guardrails. So since the guardrails are not out yet from the foundational layer side, it's very difficult to build out guardrails for the application layer, which is very dependent upon the foundational rails. My thesis is over the next 2 years, and by the way, OpenAI and Anthropic have a framework for this, which we can talk about. But yeah, they are building some frameworks which over the next couple of years would come in and probably feed into a lot of the laws that the policymakers are taking, which is primarily in Europe. I'm sure you're aware of the laws there. Some work in the US as well. But I think over the next couple of years is where the guardrails will get set out. And I think from there, the benchmarking will really start. I feel it's a little unfair for us to individually comment on our strengths without having one benchmark in place.
It's always a balancing act between innovation, the pace of innovation,
absolutely,
and the ethical challenges which come with it.
Yeah.
You have to balance it out as a startup. Time is up, but if there is one more question, we can take a last question from the audience.
Hello, this is Professor Probal from IIM Udaipur. I have a question for all the founders here. So since you are more or less the next set of businesses, mostly focusing on AI, right? And I just heard that you are saying more or less your employees count is around 10 or 20 or 30. How do you see you will add to job creation? Because if most companies are going to be AI driven, and what's your roadmap for job creation, particularly for a country like India where so many so much people are available in the labor force? If you can give some points.
Right. So probably I'll go first. So since you're from academia, let me tell you that I owe the company's existence to Ashban's IIM Calcutta Innovation Park, where SIDBI funded us. Now, having received the fund, we don't have to deploy large number of software coders, developers. Few people using software tools can do the same job which a large army of software developers were doing earlier. So on that side, I don't see job creation happening on the basic coding or maintenance. I do see job creation happening on real authentic architecture part of it, which is where deep knowledge is required about how AI systems will work. They will be highly paid jobs, but the number of jobs will be less. So please get used to it.
So very interestingly, there are two aspects of it. First, when we are dealing with enterprises or when the deployment is happening, and I guess that would happen on consumer side too, but essentially on the enterprise side, when you are selling an AI solution, you also need to ensure that your AI solution is actually up to the mark. How do you do that? I mean, you can put guardrails, you can put other things, but is it actually working? So there is an effort at our end where we put out a QA. A percentage of the processing is put to human QA. Now, that is something which is very interesting because now you put that to human QA, that means human come into picture, they have to do the QA, and that's where the job creation is happening. So in our case, we have seen some NGOs who have worked very closely with us, where you see in the rural part of the world where there is almost no way to earn good money, if we provide a platform where they can actually answer a few of the questions. Of course, one question need to be cross-referenced. So you will not have one answer coming from one human as the correct one. You have to cross-reference. So you have to, if it is something like 2 persons are validating it, if one of them is making a mistake, you go to the third one. So that's why how the platform work on the QA part. And that's where it is happening. So I see a lot of people using, I mean, it cannot be unprotected, so there are data centers or there are smaller centers which require this to be done. So I have seen people in eastern part of the UP asking us to have a center at their places. I have seen in Odisha asking us to do that center at their places, and they are creating jobs. This is something where you don't need to be computer literate, but still this QA is helping them do that. So that's a part of our revenue which is going there. But that's the essential part to make sure that the AI is actually performing as the required level.